So two main hormones. So and oh yeah, that's another name for the posterior pituitary hormones. Is that they have also, it's also called the neural hypophysis. So I like to think of it this way: because you have the neurons directly secreting the hormones, this is why I pay attention to the neural part. So there's something called ADH, and that stands for anti-diuretic hormone. And another common name for that is vasopressin, same thing, tomato, tomato. But this actually becomes very important when we talk about blood pressure very soon in the semester. And inhibits something called diuresis. So diuresis is the medical term for production of urine. So remember, this is where the anti becomes very important. So diuresis is the production of urine. But since it's anti-diuretic, it's going to prevent the production of urine. Now, oxytocin, sometimes abbreviated OXT. So this is very important, and it actually has many different roles, but the role I definitely want you to know is trust and social bonding. So it has a lot of psychological effects as well. It has physiological effects, but it's also very important in terms of like social, I guess, yeah, social bonding. Yeah, that's the best, like, very general term for it. But let's talk about that ADH first. So what is ADH? Again, that you should know both terms, vasopressin and ADH, because a lot of medical journals might use one exclusively or flip between them both. So again, this is why it's not important to know both. So diuresis, again, the medical term for production of urine. So all these people, they're on their way to do diuresis. They're all there. They want to release their urine. But when you have ADH, what is it? It's anti-diuretic. So if you add ADH to this equation, then it's going to pull back on and put the brakes on urine production. So you're not going to produce as much urine. You're going to produce a less volume of urine and have less urge to urinate. So yeah, add ADH to this equation and you clear that line. So remember, it's anti-diuretic. Now what happens here? So the thing is that it not only kind of reduces the urge to urinate, it also reduces the volume. So like, say you're not the type, like if you're go to bed and you don't take drinks of water in the middle of the night, what happens to your urine? Does it get more you notice that your urine is darker and more concentrated? Or say you've been out in the sun and you haven't drank any water for a while. Have you ever noticed like how your urine is? Becomes darker. It might have a stronger smell if you have something like coffee, or it might have like and less volume, especially if you haven't had any additional liquid since you went outdoors. So this is what happens when you have an anti-diuretic hormone. It does things to so anti-diuretic hormone does things to your kidneys that it makes it concentrate your urine. So added ADH, instead of having this light colored urine, it's going to concentrate the urine. And it's showing the same volume in this example, but it's also going to decrease the overall volume as well, because again, it's trying to prevent you from urinating. Now, it's produced in response to many stimuli. Actually, that sounds like a good pack. It might not necessarily be concentrated urine, but if you're talking about how vitamins affect urine color, actually you should ask that question, because I think I know the answer to it, but it's actually a very interesting thing. So anti-diuretic hormone is produced in response to many stimuli. Now, do I want you to know all of this? Well, the thing is that there's many different stimuli, but one major stimuli for producing anti-diuretic hormone. So whenever your body produces a hormone, it tries to accomplish something. It does it for a purpose. Because why? This hormone is going to tell other organs and tissues in your body what to do. So one thing that can stimulate and cause ADH to be produced and released in your body is high osmolarity. And again, if you don't know what osmolarity is, you might want to go back to my previous lectures. But basically, it refers to the concentrations of things that are dissolved in the fluids of your body. So in very, very near borderline inaccurate terms, how salty, how sugary, how proteinaceous. It's like depends on all these things dissolve in the waters and fluids of your body. So what we have here is a hypertonic solution. So that means the fluids of your bodies are very concentrated very concentrated in terms of like salt, sugars, and other solutes. So what do you notice? All these blood cells, they should be plump and round, but now they're looking like raisins because all the water is being sucked out of these blood cells. So what is your body going to do to compensate? Now your blood is, compared to its normal levels of salts and sugars, is pretty salty, or sugary, or both. So what is your body going to do with your urine? Well, it's going to secrete ADH. And what does ADH do? So now you're going to produce less urine, and also not only less urine, you're also going to produce more concentrated urine. So because you're secreting less water into your urine, where does that water end up? That water ends up being recycled to the rest of your body. So this is why your body secretes ADH in response to high osmolarity in your extracellular fluid and your blood. Because why? It wants to preserve the water to prevent this and restore the water balance in your body. So if you don't know what hypertonic, isotonic, and hypotonic and osmolarity is, go back to previous lectures, because this actually becomes very important when we talk about the urinary system. Sympathetic activity can also trigger this as well, and hormones and signals from other organs. So many things can trigger the production of ADH. Now, do I want you to know every single cause? Not really, but definitely the ones I explain in detail, like osmolarity changes. Now, what we have here, antidiuretic hormone, and this guy right here is doing a lot of push-ups and he's sweaty, right? So what happens to ADH when you exercise and sweat? Now let's go back to top hat. So you're exercising, you're doing a bunch of squats, you're jogging outside, you're getting some fresh air after social distancing. What happens to your levels of ADH? Okay, let's see the responses. So most of you said you produce more ADH. And oh, it says I didn't label the correct answer. I'll explain the correct answer real soon. Okay, so what happens? Well, this is one of those things where you kind of have to think about, and this is why, again, if you really like thinking out processes and breaking down things, this is why you might like the endocrine system. So remember, antidiuretic, can't emphasize this enough, preventing urination. So what happens during exercise? Well, notice this guy's producing a lot of sweat, right? So when you sweat, what happens? What's happening to the water in your body? Well, sweat has a lot of water in it, right? So if that water is now leaving your body, you're losing body water. Now, remember, ADH causes you to retain water. So again, you're trying to hold on to water and recycle water and urinate less. So this is basically one of the main functions of ADH. You want to retain water. Whereas if you have decreased ADH, that would cause you to lose water. So remember, your body likes balance and it likes to maintain things. So what happens if you continue to lose water? Well, if you continue to lose water, that's going to increase your osmolarity of your interstitial fluids and extracellular fluids and your blood as well. So you're going to have increased osmolarity. In the previous slide, we established that hyperosmolarity will cause the production of ADH. But in more like concrete examples and relatable examples, what do you do during exercise or after exercise? You typically hydrate, right? So you want to have more water. So if you want to have more water during exercise, you're not going to want to worsen your water loss. You want to retain more water. So this is why you have increased ADH when you exercise. And remember, if you're here last semester, exercise also stimulates sympathetic activity. So it all kind of comes together in this part right here. This is why I think it's a really cool example. And it builds upon knowledge if you retained it from PHYL 141. Now the other posterior hormone is oxytocin. So oxytocin, what is she doing here? She's breastfeeding, right? So very important, but the other thing is that it's also very important in social interactions and social bonding. So it's important in milk production and letdown in a lactating female, but it also has important functions outside of reproduction. So what also stimulates the uterine contractions in terms of, and yeah, so here we're talking about like pediatrics and OBGYN, and these are very important functions of oxytocin. But it's very interesting. Oxytocin has a very important role. It's a very small peptide, but it also increases the amount of social like bonding you have with not only in humans but also in primates we see here. So it's very important in establishing these kind of emotional and social connections. Now, the interesting thing is like it's also very important in trust as well. It's very interesting. If this is, I think I have in the slides, but what they did is basically give these people a dose of oxytocin and had them do this like kind of like psychological gambling game. And people were more trusting of other people when they had oxytocin. So that was a very interesting study. And the thing is that people who research oxytocin, they've also kind of like branded it the love hormone. So yeah, if you love someone, you probably have high levels of oxytocin coursing in your brain. So they kind of try to make it like the kind of selling point when they call it the love hormone, but it's not necessarily love. It's also social bonding. Now, individuals who are on the autism spectrum, they also often have difficulties or different ways of social interactions. But what they saw is that with autism, they were giving these children a dose and they found improved bonding. So it's very important in establishing social connections. But again, love is not necessarily like love, like, yeah, romantic love. It doesn't, romantic love can lead to oxytocin release, but it's more about social interactions in general. So yeah, so again, they like to brand it the love hormone, but it's involved in all these. So things like mother-child bonding, or social bonding as well. So you probably have a lot before social distancing. Say you're doing some Zoom call with your friends. Social bonding, you probably have increased levels of oxytocin, and then you also have romantic attachment. So this is why they call it the love hormone. But it's more than just like, yeah, this is a different type of love than the love you have with your partner, and then trust as well. So it could be even with strangers as well. And sexual activity. Also, oxytocin is also important in that. So again, all of these involve social bonding to some extent. So yeah, that's what oxytocin is very important in. Now, it's also very important in female reproduction. So again, we did talk about uterine contractions when a woman is pregnant, and or actually like even like outside pregnancy, and also the milk ejection reflex. And also important in reproduction and social. Yeah, so this is why it's called the love hormone. And positive feedback we'll cover more next in the next lecture. All right, so posterior lobe, pretty simple. Now let's talk about the anterior lobe, which is a lot more complex.